almost as if they're trying to add up a numerical quantity of bills that speak to law and order. One of them that I wouldn't have opposed, but I'm sure you'll hear about it when we get into the next federal election campaign, is called Protecting Seniors from Abuse bill. Or, yeah, Stopping Senior Abuse. There's some kind of language like that makes it sound like it really will protect seniors from abuse. And it's actually, considering that the 440-page omnibus budget bill, C-38, was forced through committees very quickly, this bill had all the time in the world, and it literally was less than a page. It was one clause within the criminal code changed, with one line changed, that said that in sentencing, a judge had the ability to consider the age of the victim. Now, you didn't need to put that in the criminal code. Judges already consider the age of the victim. It's one of the factors when they're sentencing. But they take a really minor change to the criminal code and dress it up with a big title, and it'll be razzle-dazzle by the time we get to election campaign. And so they'll probably say, we've passed 30 bills to better protect victims. On the other hand, the victims' rights groups come to these meetings and say what we really need is better coverage, so that if someone's the victim of a violent crime, they're able to access employment insurance for longer till they get back on their feet, that they have access to counseling, that they're able to, if you're a victim of violent crime, your life is thrown upside down, so it's one thing. But all of the so-called tough on crime agenda is based on throwing the book at anybody and keeping them in jail longer, which also, now Texas is telling anyone who'll listen, mandatory minimum sentences don't work. There is no evidence that mandatory minimum sentences have ever worked anywhere. Mandatory minimum sentence now for possession of 6 marijuana plants is mandatory. It's 4 years in jail. So these mandatory minimums are absurd, and they'll only succeed in overcrowding prisons and creating unsafe conditions. By the way, I think that, speaking of the one about private security mall cops, this one I think is also to push us in the direction of privatizing the prisons. Because the provinces aren't going to be able to afford to build new prisons, to house a prison population where judges have no discretion but must apply mandatory minimums. So there's definitely an agenda here. A lot of it is electoral, in terms of being able to message, we've been tough on crime, we've done all these things. But the other, I think, is a systematic attempt to undermine the public service and to create pressure for privatization of various things, including border security. They've laid off a ton of border security cops. I think it's going to be private. Border security is going to have to come in. How are you going to manage border security if you don't have the border security guards that used to be there?
I thought they were toughening that up through the STP agreements, that they had an integration with DHS.
Well, we do, but we're going to have. They've laid off a lot of border security cops. One thing that was in Bill C-38 that almost nobody noticed, was it C-38 or C-45, the second omnibus budget bill, and it hasn't come into effect yet, but it's part of the Security and Prosperity Partnership, that anyone who wants to visit Canada, and this relates to tourists, people who want to visit, if they're from a country that currently doesn't require a visa to come to Canada, they will be required to fill out an online form and get permission from the Ministry of Immigration to come to Canada, even as tourists. So it's not a visa requirement, but it's a hurdle. And it doesn't apply, although the way the law reads, it appears to apply to U.S. tourists too. Because of the Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement, the U.S. tourists aren't required to do this. But I mean, if you're a wealthy German looking at, I'd like to take the train through the Rocky Mountains, but maybe I'd rather go and have a look at the wildlife in South Africa, and you're planning your vacation and you discover, I have to fill out a form and get permission from the government of Canada and tell them about my health issues before I'm allowed to go on a vacation. Well, I think it's going to have a very negative impact on Canadian tourism. But that one just, I called the Canadian Tourism Commission because they didn't know about it. No. Well, see, nobody else reads the bills.
And there's part of risk that you get turned down for no particular reason.
Oh, that's right. But it's part of being able to compete compare the lists, it's basically a codifying no-fly list to coordinate with the United States before letting tourists come to Canada.
Yeah.
So it's not smart in terms of encouraging. One would hope that security agencies could screen out people who were a terrorist threat rather than throw a huge net over all tourists, which is essentially what they're doing. And tourism, the tourism sector is already in real trouble in Canada. We've dropped from being the 8th most visited country globally, 8th top tourist destination 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, and now we're, I think, 17th. There's a whole lot of factors. The U.S. tourists aren't traveling as much. I mean, we're meeting here tonight on September 11th. So 12 years ago, we know what happened to the comfort zone of U.S. tourists going to other countries, even to friendly Canada. But and the rise in the Canadian dollar is another big factor. But we've done a lot of things that make us less welcoming to tourists, and this is yet